Hello Junior 6 students, how are you? This is your time to study science as you will study lesson 2 from concept 1 unit 3. This is me, Shaimaa Hamdy, and you are watching the Big Sister channel. So don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and press the bell button to get all the new notifications. Okay, we have here activity 4, as we will know how the solar energy and gravity drive or affect the processes of the water cycle. You remember the processes of the water cycle? Yes, as we know there are 3 processes: evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. So, as we will study the factors that affect the water cycle, we want to know, as we are studying the water cycle, so where is water stored on Earth? Can you tell me where is water stored on Earth? In another way, what are the locations that store water on Earth? Yes, give me some answers. Okay, yes, the storage location on Earth may be, yes, ocean, yes, rivers, lakes, seas, glaciers. Good job, good job. This is the storage location on Earth. Okay, we call it water reservoirs. Water reservoirs. So water reservoirs are the storage locations on Earth. Okay, and as you say, oceans, rivers, lakes, seas, glaciers, also atmosphere, as the clouds and the air carry water vapor. So in atmosphere, this is a storage location on Earth that stores water. Also living organisms, as human has most of his body water. Okay, so we have now atmosphere, living organisms, also soil, as soil contain water. Okay, so it is a storage location on Earth. And rocks, as rocks stores water in them. Okay, as for example, we have porous rocks that allow water to go through them to collect in groundwater. Yes, so these are called water reservoirs as the storage locations on Earth. Okay, so water reservoirs, they are storage locations of water on Earth. And if we want to define the water cycle, as we see here in the drawing, water evaporates and then condenses and comes back to the Earth and then evaporates. So it is a continuous movement of water. Okay, where among different water reservoirs, as in this drawing you see more than one reservoir. As here, this is sea or ocean that evaporates, so this is the first reservoir, and the water vapor collected in the clouds, and clouds is another reservoir, water reservoir. And when it rains, okay, it may collected in a underground water or something like that, so this is a reservoir. So here the continuous movement of water among different water reservoirs. Okay, so this is the definition of water cycle. So we have the main processes and steps that move the water among these reservoirs. What is the processes? Evaporation, condensation, precipitation. And we have 2 steps, which are runoff and collection. All of these depending on energy and force. Can you guess with me what is the energy and the force that these processes depend on them? Yes. First, we will talk about the energy. Yes, as you guess, this is the energy that come from the sun, the solar energy or solar radiation. And we know that the most important source of energy that affects the water cycle is the solar energy, including thermal energy. That causes what? This heat, thermal energy, causes what? Yes, water changes from ice to liquid as they gain energy. Yes, from solid state to liquid state, liquid water, so they gain energy. And the other thing, when the water changes from liquid water to ice, so in this case it loses energy. Okay, as changing from liquid to solid is by losing energy. So even in the changes from water to water vapor as gas state, and from the gas state to the water as the condensation, all of these are about energy transfer that affects the water cycle. Okay, now it's time to talk about the force. We have more than force that affects the water cycle. One of them, the wind. As we mentioned before, that the wind movement affects the water cycle. Okay, so we have force as wind, okay, that affects the water cycle as water moves when force act on it as wind. And we have the main force that affects the water movement is the gravity. So the gravity is the main force that affects the water movement, as the solar energy is the main source of energy that affects the water cycle. Here the main force that affects the water movement is gravity. This force causes three effects on the water movement in the water cycle, and now we will discuss those three effects. Okay, first one is very easy, as the falling of rain or melting ice crystals as sleet from the clouds back to the earth's surface is according to the gravity effect, and this causes the flowing of water downhill into streams and rivers toward larger water bodies as oceans or seas. This happens according to or under the effect of the gravity, okay, as falling of melting ice crystals and water droplets from clouds back to the earth's surface, and this causes flowing of water downhill into streams and rivers toward the larger water bodies as seas or oceans. Yes, okay, here we have the second effect. The gravity is the force that causes what? The flowing of ice in the glaciers from higher altitude to lower altitude, and this frozen water melts and flows into the ground or the water bodies. This is according to the gravity effect, gravity force. Okay, so here we have two things. First one, falling of melting ice crystals and water droplets from the clouds back to the earth, and flowing of water downhill into streams and rivers and toward larger water bodies. And the second one is the flowing of ice of the glaciers from higher altitude to lower altitude, and we know glaciers means mountains of ice. Okay, this frozen water melts and flows into the ground or the water bodies. This is according to the gravity force. The last one, the leakage of the liquid down to the ground, then to the ground reservoirs. Okay, this is according to the gravity force, okay, that pulls water toward earth. Yes, as we have also the flowing of groundwater from higher altitudes area to lower altitude area, as any flowing from the higher altitude to the lower altitude is according to the gravity force. Okay, so here we have the leakage of the liquid down to the ground into the ground reservoirs, groundwater reservoirs, and the flowing of groundwater from the higher altitude to the lower altitude area. Now we finish this activity. We will go to activity 5, energy and water. As water changes from one state to another by gaining or losing energy. So here the movement of air from one place to another in presence of difference in temperature. Okay, as here is high temperature and here low temperature. There is a difference between the two areas in the temperature. What happens here? Let us think in this point, as here in the high temperature area. Here what happens? Yes, more evaporation happens, so the air here hold more water vapor. Yes, but here in the lower temperature area, what happens? As the rate of evaporation is decreases. Okay, so the air here doesn't hold much water vapor as in the high temperature area. Okay, so the movement of air from one place to another that have differences in the temperature leads to what? Okay, causes what? Changing of liquid water to water vapor, evaporation, and the changing water vapor to water condensation. Okay, so these two processes are affected by the movement of air from one place that is different in temperature from the other place. Now we have a process that it is evaporation but in the plant leaves. This called transpiration. So in this transpiration, it is a type of evaporation that takes place through the stomata in the plant leaves. You know, stomata is the pores in the leaves of the plant. Okay, here in this stomata evaporation takes place. Okay, so as you see here, you see there is water droplets. That means that evaporation happens. Okay, now we will see the transpiration in this experiment. As if we bring two plants differ in size, as one big and other smaller than it. Okay, put one of them in direct sunlight, okay, and the other in shadow area. Okay, as we see here, and then we will tie around the leaf of the plant from each one a plastic bag. Why we tying this plastic bag? Because if there is evaporation or transpiration, okay, we will see like vapor and water droplet. Okay, so what do you think that you can observe or notice here? Okay, and does the sunlight affect the amount of the transpiration, as one plant in the shadow and the other directed to the sunlight? Is there a difference? That's what we will see now. Yes, we will see that water droplets formed inside each of the two bags, and this is indication of transpiration. And about the sunlight affects the transpiration, yes, the sunlight affects the amount of transpiration as it affects the amount of evaporation in the water cycle. Okay, as the amount of energy comes from the sun increases, the amount of transpiration of plant increases too. Okay, as the amount of sunlight increases, the amount of transpiration increases too. Okay, so here we will talk about that. So here we have a question as to circle the processes that gained energy. Okay, which of these processes gained energy? Evaporation, condensation, melting, freezing, transpiration. So the processes that gained energy, yes, evaporation. Condensation, of course, no. Melting, yes, it gained energy. Freezing, of course, no, because this is about losing energy. And we have transpiration. This is a process that gained energy. Okay, as here the water inside the gained energy from the sun, and it evaporates to form water vapor. Yes, and it comes from these pores, which is stomata. So the processes that gained energy: evaporation, melting, and transpiration. So you did it, junior 6 students. Okay, now transfer of energy. We will talk in the 3 processes how the energy transfer in these 3 processes. Evaporation, as in evaporation in the water cycle, the sun heats up the water in different water bodies, causes it to evaporate due to the gaining energy. Okay, here in the transpiration, we know that it is a type of evaporation that happens in the plant leaves. Okay, as the water also heated up by the sunlight energy, and it changes into water vapor. Yes, and about 10% of the water vapor in the air comes from the transpiration of plant. Okay, so about 10% of the water vapor in the air comes from the transpiration process of plant. We have here about condensation. What is the transfer of energy in the condensation process? As the air that's saturated with the water vapor cools, okay, due to the decrease in temperature. So what happens when the water cools? Okay, due to the decrease in temperature, yes, water vapor changes into liquid water, and clouds are formed. Okay, they consist of what? Tiny water droplets that are condensed in the air. Okay, so water vapor releases or loses energy and changes into liquid water. If you want to know how clouds are formed, they are formed from water droplets, small water drops, yes, attached to smoke particles and dust particles. All of them are together. Okay, the water droplets and dust and smoke particles. Okay, when large amount of water droplets join together, millions of tiny droplets, they become too heavy. Okay, so they fall in the form of rain. When large amount of water droplets collected or joined together, they become very heavy and they fall in the form of rain, as rain. With this information, we finished our lesson. I hope it was easy. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.